Okay. Let's see. We have, let's see, Barbara. Risa has joined. Hi, Risa. Joseph has joined. Shabbat Shalom, Joseph. Marina, Shabbat Shalom. Lynn, Shabbat Shalom. Uh, okay. The tribe is gathering. Uh, okay. Zax is here. Zax. Yep. Yep. Uh, Hi, Lynn. Shabbat Shalom. Now I can see you. Okay. Very good. Uh, I'm going to start off in a different kind of a way today, just because a teaching moment has occurred. Uh, on January 23rd, I mean, this is not something you may choose to mark on your calendars, but on Shabbat Shalom tomorrow, Shabbat Shalom, uh, the Shloshim for Rabbi David Ellenson is being held. Now, David Ellenson was president of the Hebrew College and was a fabulous, fabulous person, but that's not the point here. The point is Shloshim. They're having a Shloshim. Can someone explain to me what Shloshim is? What it is? What it's about? Okay, Steve?
As I recall, you're celebrating I don't know if celebrating. It's the end of the 30 days of since the person died, and a number of the restrictions. First you have Shiva, but then there are additional restrictions that go on up to 30 days, and they now end, and you go almost fully back to your normal life.
Okay, so what we have, the word shloshim means 30, 30. And it's kind of interesting. There is a choreography, God forbid, to Shiva, right? And so there are all kinds of restrictions on the 7 days of Shiva. And then for a lot of real people, the Shiva restrictions slowly ease. People return to work and they do their things. They'll continue to say Kaddish, but especially during the Shiva period, men will not shave, don't listen to music, don't listen to live performances, that kind of stuff. But traditionally, at Shloshim, the 30 days after the passing of God forbid, a spouse, a sibling, a child, most mourning practices disappear. Kaddish is traditionally continued for 11 months. Now, what's interesting about Shloshim is that it's another wonderful way to remember the deceased differently. Shloshim can be the time, for example, when you dedicate a tombstone. People are always asking me, when can you dedicate a tombstone? From the time of Shloshim on, it's permitted. That's when it happens. So anytime after Shloshim, some people say, "Oh, I'm going to wait for the year." Fine, but anytime after Shloshim, you can have the so-called unveiling. But there's something else that's special. For a scholar, Shloshim traditionally is a period of study. And that's a beautiful thing. 30 days after the passing of a scholar, the community gathers for study dedicated to the memory of that person. Shloshim is a really interesting facet in the mourning process. Shiva, the 7 days full mourning. Shloshim, almost everything in mourning outside the reciting of Kaddish ends. And for a scholar in particular, it's a time of study for the next 11 months. And why 11 months and not a year? Why 11 months and not a year? Donna.
I think it has something to do with the fact that your soul, the person's soul is sort of in limbo, and we're praying for it to go to heaven. And apparently they're considering this for at least a year. So we don't do a full year for the person because we don't want to say that they are the worst, that they need to think about this so hard that they need the full year. So we stop at 11 months.
That really, I mean, that really is it. It's kind of like straight. But if you're every time you say Kaddish according to traditional Jewish understandings, you are, as Donna said, you are elevating the soul. And God forbid you would think that your beloved relative or friend needs a full year's elevation. So you stop at 11 months, and then the 12th month is the first yortzeit, right? And so that continues. You will also notice that some male mourners will observe the full 11 months of not shaving. It was interesting. There was a loss in the family of the president of Israel, Herzog, and he grew his beard and kept it for the full 11 months. It just, and it was kind of interesting to watch that happen. So we're observing Shloshim. There are things that we can do to enrich the mourning process. I don't want to spend any more time on this unless there is a question. To me, it's fascinating. I love the notion that for scholars, the best thing you can do to remember a scholar is to study. And so that's a neat thing. Any question? If not, we move on. Okay, very good. On Wednesday, January 24th, current events, Wednesday the 24th, and then January 26th, Lisa Picot will be installed as the senior cantor at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And I mention that because I love her music, and it's going to be a magnificent celebration, the 26th. Okay.
She's fabulous, Rabbi. She's fabulous.
Checking in. Anyone want to check in? Anything happening in your lives? Anything going on of significance? Rebecca.
Well, first, I won't be here for the next 2 Saturdays, but what I want to say is that I wrote a letter to the editor of the LA Times, and it got published.
Whoa! You are
Cool.
you are a published author.
I am. It was on January, and there's even more to the story. On January 11th, there was a story about closed captioning becoming more mainstream, and cineplexes are weighing their options to add closed captioning. In 1978, the Greater Los Angeles Council on Deafness and 2 plaintiffs sued public television, and the litigator was my grandfather.
Well,
so what I wrote was that I was, felt pride and astonishment. And I said plaudits and admiration to all of those who continue to pursue closed captioning on all media choices. My grandfather is smiling. And they published it. And the most amazing thing is that it was published on January 16th. And my grandfather's birthday was the 17th of January.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. Marina.
2 weeks ago, I shared with this group that we were discontinuing dialysis for my stepfather. He passed away last Saturday.
So sorry. So sorry.
It's the circle of life. It's a difficult time, but it's a relief for him and for his wife.
Can you please tell me his name?
Anatoly Razgon, Razgon.
Razgon. Okay, I will add that to the
Kaddish today.
The Kaddish for today. Steve.
Thank you.
Just going to comment on what Rebecca said, which was great. But one of the biggest reasons for the rise in closed captioning are fully capable hearing people like me turning them on because the actors are now mumbling.
And by the way, Steve, with increasing years, they mumble more and more. But I'm just reflecting my own particular problems. I see closed captioning popping up, and I love it because it tells me what I just said, because there's another thing that disappears, memory. So it's useful in several directions. Any other checking in? If not, we're going to get to work. We're in the Sedra called Bo, and I will not name the name of the individual who said it, but someone last night said to me, this is the most difficult Sedra of all to study. Mm-hmm. This is a very, very, very difficult Sedra. And you know what? That's counterintuitive, because you got the Exodus getting started and even matzah. I mean, how much better? You get matzah, you get the whole notion of Passover, and it's all going on here. And it's a terribly difficult Sedra. Terribly, terribly difficult. The final three plagues: locusts, darkness, death, the slaying of the firstborn. Did a little bit of research. Believe me, not that I have any expertise, but there are two powerful Egyptian gods, Horus and Seth. Horus was known for his control of the sun and the moon. And the plagues, we don't understand the plagues. We don't have any historical connection. They are just listed as these terrible events. And some scientific interpreters would like to believe, and I don't mean this in a diminishing way, would like to believe that the darkness was an attack on the power of Horus. That darkness was an attack on the god of the sun and the moon. And when you have Horus, the god of the sun and the moon, I know that Tamara would want me to mention that in the Midrash, there is this big competition between the sun and the moon. Very, very big. And one would like to believe that this actually is a trace of Egyptian elements within the within the Midrash itself. And the sun getting all kinds of benefits, big gets the day, and the humble moon, which deserved better, ends up with nighttime, and who really cares about that? So we have that, and the scientists who present this say that the ordinary Egyptians would know that if the sun is blotted out, this isn't just a a phenomenon of the heavens. This is an attack on one of the chief gods of Egypt. I don't know this. That is to say, I know that people say it. Is this the origin of the plague? I don't know that. The sun was considered to be a god. Blotting out the sun is an attack. But let's focus a little bit more. Moses several times encounters Pharaoh when he is down in the Nile early in the morning and rising up. He takes his ablution in the Nile. According to scholars of Egyptology, Pharaoh immersed himself so that he could rise up in parallel to the rising of the sun. Do you get the image? Pharaoh, the god, the sun rising. Pharaoh rises from the water, the sun rises into the heaven, and you have a parallelism which doesn't require a great deal of explanation to the people. If you will, as it is on earth, so it is in the heavens. The sun, the Pharaoh, and then if you blot it out, yeah, chapter 10. If you blot it out, then you are attacking Pharaoh. I don't know. This is just one of the ways we try to understand the plagues, which are a phenomenon which we don't understand. I have read so many explanations about everything from frogs to lice to cattle to vermin to whatever. And it's all very fascinating. Did it happen this way? Why not? I don't know. The story is there and it's good. It's a good story. I want to raise a question to all of you. And I said you as opposed to us, holding myself back here. The plague of darkness was a horrible plague. It affected all of Egypt. The plague of the slaying of the firstborn was infinitely more difficult. The question I am asking you to respond to is the question of proportionality and God's justice. How do you feel about a plague that strikes every household in Egypt, again, according to the text? But it's a celebrated text in which the firstborn, cattle, yeah, the firstborn of every household is slain by God as a way of persuading Pharaoh to let the people go. Does it concern you at all, or is it just something I'm raising to fill the hour? What do you think? I'm looking for hands. I really am.
I have one, Rabbi.
I really would like to see how you respond to this, because, folks, the issue of proportionality is very much in the headlines today. What permits massive destruction? So I see Steve, I see Donna, I see Susie. in that order. Oh, and then Ray after Susie.
I actually have very mixed feelings, but in terms of proportionality, as always, you should start with looking at the other side. And Pharaoh had already killed the Hebrews' children. So that's one thing. At least he was hoping to get to Pharaoh. If less isolated things don't work, the question of proportionality is, what is fair collateral damage to accomplish the appropriate goal? And it seems like, unlike Hamas, maybe Pharaoh actually cared about his people and might react to save them from future harm. And if that's the only way to get freedom, which is a legitimate goal, or in the context of today, military goal, you have to look at it in those terms.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Donna?
Golda Meir said, if we don't stand our ground, they'll kill all of us. We have got to be proud to our Hebrews. And when the Lord struck the firstborn of Egypt, in my opinion, if you look at the Torah all through history, God is jealous. We are his children. And it's kind of like, maybe one day they'll learn, but I don't like people dying and getting killed. I don't like war. I don't like any of that. I light a candle and I'm sad, but people have got to respect one another, a right to exist. And
Thank you. I got lost here. Susie. You're muted, Susie, which is not appropriate. Susie, you're muted.
I thought Ray was next.
Susie, you're muted.
Now I'm not. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I always know when I'm muted. I get the signal. I'm very glad you brought this up. Really glad. Every Passover, when we talk about the plagues, I have to say, I almost close my ears and my brain because it's so cruel. Sometimes I feel like it's an intentional exaggeration to warn us about being better human beings. So I'm glad you brought it up, and I want to hear everybody's comments. I can't ever fathom that part of Passover. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Ray, and I see Brad, and I see Merle.
Thank you. Suzanne, thank you for echoing a feeling that I also have had for some time. It's important. I'm going to be brief just because I heard Stan's question as asking right now perhaps for a straw poll. So after echoing you, I'm just going to say, yeah, I have a huge problem with the, I will say, disproportionate punishment of masses who are, for no reason that the text gives us to believe, implicated in Pharaoh's intransigence. So that's my vote.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's possible to see the plagues in increasing severity. I mean, if you look at darkness, darkness is the one plague that is multidimensional. All the others are one-dimensional, but darkness metaphorically has so many implications. So, if you think of this as a ladder, and increasing severity as you go up, what would be next after darkness? What else would work?
Okay, Merle.
I feel like the plagues are enough of a threat, but I have a really difficult time with saying that killing is a way to persuade people or an individual. I just really have a hard time with it. So that's my vote.
Thank you very much, Howard.
Well, I would want to say that this text purports to be within a context of 35 centuries ago. So 35 centuries ago, unless you believe the text was divinely inspired and never changes, and it's always universally true, there's some evolution here. We don't believe today in slavery. We don't believe in human sacrifice. We don't believe in killing, capital punishment, or at least some of us don't. So there's room for evolution. And just because this story of this ancient time involves slaying of the firstborn, that's a great story, but it doesn't mean that we believe in still slaying of the firstborn or that it's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, thank you for that. Do I have any other hands? And I really appreciate the fact that you've participated. Harv, yes.
That's you.
Oh, so you were waving your hand, Harv.
Just to throw you off.
So I'm thinking about the notion of a moral code, and I'm thinking of two things. The first is that the Israelites at this, we don't know if the Israelites all are good people. We don't know if they all observe the moral code as it exists at this point. So I guess I'm a little troubled by the notion of every Israelite household has the right to leave Egypt. And then, of course, on the other side, we don't know that every Egyptian supported the cruelty towards the Israelites. And of course, that mirrors what we're seeing today. How can we condone the slaughter of potentially innocent people who didn't or don't have the opportunity to make decisions about what their so-called government does on either side?
Thank you. We have lots of hands. Donna, please. And then Rebecca.
Well, I think I'm going to
And
play.
Natalie. Natalie, did you have you? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I do.
Okay, so Donna, Rebecca, Natalie.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because you could say that, oh, there were lots of innocent Egyptians and they didn't all deserve to die, have children die. But you can also say that every one of the members of the Egyptian society benefited off of the slavery imposed upon the Hebrews. So, in a sense, they are all collectively in some way guilty. And as far as not letting bad Jews, bad Hebrews leave, I don't think that freedom is a reward for being good. Freedom is like a basic condition of being a human being. So I'm not sure I agree with that completely. So that's all I have to say.
I think that what you just said right there was very insightful. Okay, may I pause briefly to applaud it? Freedom is not something which you earn by being a good person. Freedom is how did you describe it? The natural right.
A basic condition of being human.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I see Ray and then Rebecca.
I think Rebecca may have been
Natalie,
earlier.
I forgot Natalie.
Okay.
Right. Oh, great.
Chevra.
I forgot Natalie.
Do I go? Who goes? Me? You want me now? Okay, what I have to say is that times change, rules change. We've reached a certain point in history now where we look at things maybe a little differently. Some people may think in this group, but human nature has never changed. That has been the same from the beginning of time. And human nature results, and the end result is that what's going on in Gaza right now and Israel, that when people are after you, when times are terrible, you are able to do the most horrible things because of the human nature that is evil in the world. And you must protect yourself. And I see these rules at the Seder, they sound horrible to us today, but when you think of all the wars that we have lived through in our time, and you analyze how they started, why they started, it all goes back to the basic frailty of human nature, and that is to be able to kill for your own worth. And that's what I feel.
This has been amazing. Thank you,
I
Ray.
nobody's going to like that, but that's what I believe.
Thank you, Ray. And then Rebecca.
Okay, I have the impression Rebecca was first. If Rebecca wishes to go next, I will welcome that.
Okay, Rebecca, please.
Well, later in the Bible, in Exodus, they refer to eye for an eye, right? I think they were trying to explain maybe perhaps what was going on during the plagues. I don't know, maybe you can help me with this, Rabbi. But we also have to remember that we still have the death penalty in this country. Nothing has really changed.
Oh, ha!
It's different.
I'm gonna drown myself in a cup of coffee after this program is over. Okay, that's great. Ray?
Thank you. I am struggling to square this, and I certainly am always conscious that Torah, though some of us will debate on this point perhaps, is internally inconsistent as its character. But I'm nonetheless wanting to square this with the centrally important episode of Abraham negotiating with God about will you spare the city for the sake of the 50, for the sake of and then bargaining down if there's even one righteous person. And that's in the text for an important reason. And I find a fundamental philosophical difference between the question that episode raises and the account of the plagues. And I don't have a ready answer, but I think the contradiction's important for us.
Okay, we're just going to take a couple more. I see Donna, I see Lorraine, and you may, Maya, I may come back to you and ask you if you're willing, because I would love your input on that if you're willing. But Lorraine and Donna, go ahead. Lorraine,
go first.
Okay.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to bring it back to the piece of proportionality that was asked in the beginning. Yesterday on the Torah study group, we touched on one particular point which I thought was very interesting. When we're talking about the last plague, when the firstborn was stricken, we also see this as it was also seen as means of the firstborn is the traditionally the individual in the household that carries the most power, is the heir, and these individuals are also likely to be in positions of control, of of high relevance in a society like Egypt back then. So striking the firstborn was also a means of collapsing the society and finally enabling the Exodus. It was the last resort. And I think that the magnitude was also like it was what needed to be proportionate for that to happen at that time. A lot of things, like we were talking, I believe Brad was talking about a ladder of increases, and that was the last step. And I just wanted to bring that into the conversation because we are talking about proportionality and how these large magnitude measures are oftentimes just the last resort because everything else has been tried already. So I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorraine, for bringing in that additional important piece. Donna?
Well, proportionality, I want to ask everybody a question. If someone were to go after your daughter or your son, what would you do? As a mother or a father, I would not allow anyone to harm my children. And I hate killing and war and all these things are so bad, but we have to be strong to protect our identity as Jews. And we have to get rid. Everybody was at the table for peace, but the Hamas didn't want it. The king of Saudi Arabia, everybody was there. They are evil, and it's horrible what's going on. I don't agree with killing and mass killing, all this stuff, but we have got to see. You have the IDF in the tunnel trying to make Israel look like we're trying to hurt the children when we're not. They're flipping the script. We have to be strong. Just keep praying. I pray this war gets over soon, and the hostages get home safely.
That's great. Thank you. Maya, I had asked you if you'd be willing. Are you willing?
Maybe just for a second, I just wanted to comment on what Donna was talking about regarding a sort of natural right to freedom. And if we're looking back at the context of being ready or willing or justified in killing in order to obtain that freedom. And I feel like it's fair to acknowledge that life itself is perhaps a natural right. It's your autonomy, it's who you are. And I can't tell if death of somebody else is worth my freedom or the choice to kill versus one's own freedom is necessarily agreeable or equal.
It's kind of a different question. I was responding to what Mara had to say about what about the good people, the bad people of Israel, should they be allowed to go? I'm just saying that freedom is not a reward for one thing or another. It's not a question of what price you pay for freedom. It's just you don't have to have a certain status to deserve freedom, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the comment itself. I was just talking about the choice of words, about how freedom in and of itself should be a natural right in certain ways, and to what extent can we justify the ways in which we obtain freedom.
Ah, boy, that's a month's conversation. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to bring an end to this conversation, not because we've resolved it, but I have to thank you. I have to thank you. This has been the most thorough discussion. My bottom line is here. What does the slaying of the firstborn teach us about God? And that to me is an implicit lesson baked into this. God chose the slaying of the firstborn as the ultimate means of breaking the Israelites out of Egypt and of what convincing Pharaoh to let go. It troubles me. It troubles me, and I can't do more than that. I am sorry that God's justice involves an approved slaying of the firstborn. That's just me. And it's not that I have an answer. Okay, Risa, you're going to jump on me. I better let you speak now or else you'll yell at me later. Okay, what? Yes, please, Risa.
However, I think all of the plagues are God showing his strength and his power, not only to the Egyptians, but also reminding the Jewish people that the Israelites, that he is all powerful. And this is far from the first time that we see God slaying people. He slays people, you know, the famous story with Lot, and he slays people who make a fire wrong. He drops people from the earth like an earthquake. And this is one of his powers that he resorts to. So it's not unexpected from God.
Am I supposed to feel good about your last comment? Yes, yes. Okay, thank you for that. We're going to move on, Steve, but please make it quick. I do want to move on.
I'll be quick. What's more troubling to me, and I understand why God went through it, but he ultimately knew he was going to get to the firstborn because he hardened Pharaoh's heart in a way that enabled him to make sure he could go through all of these steps. And maybe it's to unite the Hebrews and get them to accept him, but it was all part of a plan that was foreseeable from the very beginning that it would get there.
I don't know about you. I'm not leaving this conversation feeling with the issue resolved. Not at all. But I really appreciate your comments. I want to move on only because I'm compulsive. Exodus chapter 10, verse 7 to 11 is on page 406. And I just wanted to get to this and a couple other things. Pharaoh's courtiers, start saying, let him out of here, let him out of here. So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said to them, go worship the eternal your God. And then this statement, mi vami haholchim. And I think this is one of the most important questions asked in the Torah. Not just which of the Israelites are leaving, but any question you encounter, any political issue, any family issue, any communal issue, the phrase mi vami haholchim pops up. Who are among those who are going to go? You know that the greatest power exercised by the Speaker of the House is to count who will support the issue. Mi vami haholchim. When you stand up and say, we believe this, what does that really mean? Do you know mi vami haholchim? Who are those who are standing with you? When you make a statement, we the people believe, Me va me. Who are they? What are you really saying? And the bottom line, even though that's not what the Torah is saying, to me, it says, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to change the world, who are your allies? And if you don't know how to answer that question, you can't bring change. Me,
Right on, Rabbi.
me, haholchim. Who are the ones who will be marching with you? When you look at the picture of Martin Luther King crossing the bridge, right? Crossing the bridge, and you ask, okay, mi va mi haholchim. Heschel was standing there. Others were standing there. They were marching with him. Martin Luther King knew who was marching with him.
Mm-hmm.
When we want to change things in society, when we want to change things in an organization, even if you want to restructure relationships within a family, mi va mi haholchim. I have made reference to this phrase somewhere close to 732 million times. It's so important. It is so important that you who want to make the world a better place know how to answer that question. If you can't answer the question, you can't bring change. So I wanted to get, by the way, not that I want to use contemporary references, but there's this fellow, Senator Scott of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikki Haley appointed him to fill a senatorial position. He is a senator because of Nikki Haley. And he endorsed another candidate, not Nikki Haley. Again, a question. Some would say it's blindsiding. The other would say she didn't know mi va mi haholchim, who are going to be marching with you.
Good analogy.
Really good analogy.
Hey, I work on this stuff. It isn't accidental.
Well, I commend you. That's a good analogy.
We agree, Rabbi.
Okay, so one good analogy in an hour. Okay, hey, that's not altogether bad, but that's fun. Look at verse 10. Now, some of you may be aware that Tamara and I are beginning to work on a book dealing with evil. Okay, so we are, if I can say this nicely, we are consumed by evil. Now, careful how you express that. Now, in verse, Pharaoh responds, fat chance. When it says the eternal be with you, the translation of that into good English is fat chance. Sure. Yeah, I am going to let your dependents go with you. Yeah, fat chance. That's what Pharaoh says. And then the phrase, ki ra'a neged penechem. You may think that simple little phrases like that are to be ignored. And my comment is, no, they're not. Because the rabbis make a big deal. English says, clearly you are bent on mischief. That bad translation. Mischief is not the good way to translate ra'ah. Ra'ah at its core is wickedness or evil. Donna, what are you saying? I can't read your lips.
I'm agreeing with you that it means evil.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. get someone to say you agree with me. Fine. But I couldn't reach your lips. It was very frustrating. Okay. Okay. Now, so Pharaoh is saying, Ki ra'a neged penechem, you are, intent on doing evil. Mischief is kind of like, you're going to hide the cheese. No, it's more than that. But this is wicked. But, are you aware that the rabbis interpret it this way? Ra'ah is the name of one of the stars. Ra'ah. The rabbis named this, or had a name, understood there is Ra'ah. And what they read Pharaoh is saying is, I have read the stars, and you are going to be a people upon whom wickedness will be visited. And the rabbis make the complete comment, Ki ra'a neged penechem, means Pharaoh knew that they were going to get involved with the golden calf and that they were going to be miserably punished. I would have to say that's probably not very close to the literal meaning of the editors or the writers of the text. But look what happens when you mix astrology with the text. The rabbis looked at Ra'ah and in their day understood Ra'ah not just to mean wickedness, but it's in the stars, that star called evil, which exercises some control, and you folks are going to suffer. That's all. It just, I don't know, I enjoy getting ready for this stuff and figuring what to do. The last thing I want to offer, because we're running out of time, Ibn Ezra wrote in his commentary that the actions of the Israelites to plunder the Egyptians during the plague of darkness was the intentionality of God. Now I gotta say this. God, I'm doing Ibn Ezra, God acted in such a way so as to lure the Egyptians to pursue the Israelites and to drown in the Reed Sea. Think about what Ibn Ezra is saying. It connects back again to the slaying of the firstborn. Ibn Ezra was comfortable saying God used the Israelites' behavior to lure the Egyptians into pursuing the Israelites so that at the end of the day, they drown. And then Ibn Ezra has an answer to the Chevra Torah in 2024. Here is Ibn Ezra speaking to us. Quote, one should not question the acts of God, as God does everything with wisdom, even though what God does is hidden from the eyes of even the wise people. Ibn Ezra knew that what was going on with the plague of the slaying of the firstborn was evil. He knew it. He knew that leading the Egyptian soldiers into the Red Sea to drown was evil. And so he answered every one of us. Stop questioning God's justice. What God does is just, and the fact that you don't understand it means little. I found that to be an astonishing comment. The interesting thing is the implication that Ibn Ezra read the slaying of the firstborn the same way we did, except he said, is speaking in the fluent Yiddish, which he didn't know, epis, hold it, folks. God is just no matter what you think. How do I end a class with that statement? Okay,
Rabbi?
Brad, you get the last word. Okay,
Well, no, I'm just wondering, Rabbi, is that what's called teleological thinking? You look at the end result and work backwards?
Sure, it's teleology. And it's a teleological. Oh, here comes a phrase from Stanley. A teleological justification. Okay? Yes. Yes. The net result was great. Susie, and you get the last word because you have a horrible shoulder.
I just find that my analogy is like the parent saying to the child, you have to go to your room because I said so. And God is saying, we have to accept this because this is how it is. I'm punishing the Egyptians. They're going to die in the Red Sea. And that's how it is. You have to accept the fact that that's the price you have to pay for the slaying of the firstborn. For me, it doesn't make enough sense.
Okay.
It's too much punishment.
I'm just going to end the way I kind of started this little piece. It's incredible that Ibn Ezra was willing to think that on the face of it, what God did was evil.
I hear you.
He offers an explanation, but he's explaining what troubled him. And I think that's awesome. I think that is incredible.
I do too, but I don't think the parents of the firstborn would think that.
And so we go on. Yes, yes, yes. I agree with Rabbi Eskenazi, but I don't know what she said. What did she say? I have to go looking in the chat. What did you say? Oh, not all evil. A justification of what God does is fundamentally not evil. It's a different thing. Okay. I hope we all feel that we've come to a deeper understanding of God and God's behavior through the study of this Sedra. And if you understand how I began this class by saying it reads so happy, and it is a tremendously deep and troubling Sedra.
It is.
Whoa! Okay. We're going to go on to Kaddish now.
Kaddish.
And just thank you. I have this whole big section on what to do about darkness. I have all this stuff on darkness, which we're not going to cover today. Okay. Next year. Those who have passed away during the past month: Cynthia Ader, Ohad Asher, May Bendit, Nadav Issachar Fari, Bruce Jacobson, Naomi Malin, Edward Meltzer Jr., John Menzies, Marcia Arnold Netzer, Anatoly Rozgan, Arthur Schwimmer, Lee Jacob Silver, Gloria Strasburger, Jacqueline Tenzer. And the following, the anniversaries of whose deaths, the yahrzeit occurred during this past week. Irving K. Abronsky, Bertha Adashek, Miriam Adler, Toby Alex, Steve Astrakhan, Fanny Ball, Charles Benjamin, Philip Bennett, Iraj Berliani, Norman Berkowitz, Steve Berman, Victor Berman, John Brewer, Morris Brooks, Helen Cacciato, Joseph Caden, Michael Che, Charles Clayman, Carol Cohn, Barbara June Cowan, Jerome Dissner, Joseph Dresser, Daniel Dworsky, Elaine Edelstein, Rose Antorno, Esther Fischler, Robert Joseph Flicker, Yetta Frankel. Fanny Freisleben, Robert Fried, Regina Friedman, Robert Garber, Herman Garden, Mindy Garvey, Aubrey Glaser, Martin Glotzer, Marvin Green, Roberto Grimberg, Edward Gurney, Richard Halligan, Alvin Hamburger, John Harris, Margaret Hartnett, Jack Hirsch, Harold Hoffenberg, Myrna Horn, Robert John Ermis, Jerry Jacobson, Gertrude Kaplan, Orna Kaplan, Judith Kapor, Amiram Carney, Louis Katz, Howard Kaufman, Marian Kopolov, Carol Beth Korn, Sarah Kraut, Commander George Kurtz, Alfred Kuczynski, Louis Leon, Shirley Levitt, Samuel Levy, Milton Malin, Theodore Mann, John Marion, Becky Miner, Erwin Michelson, Yvette Mimia, Stephen Negrea, Michiko Nickerson, Hattie Orden, Mata Einhorn Pearl, Bernard Flug, Alice Pollitt, Hendy Porter, Rona Bierman Pullman, Lillian Rappaport, Ella Reese, Harry Rex, Patricia Oppenheim Levin Rice, Samuel Roddy, Irving Rodner, Regina Ross, Margot Rothstein, Rolla Rubin, Judy Rudman, Javier Salinas, Sharon Schechter, Stuart Schlig, Sally Schlossberg, Tilly Schwab, Henry Seidman, Lillian Shamus, Ella Sherman, Erwin Schreier, Jeanette Snyder, David Sobel, Leroy Solomon, Regina Solomon, Raymond Stanley Spiro, Marilyn Sprung, Bruce Stark, Jerome Steyer, Erwin Stein, Tamara Stolyarski, Hayward Tamkin, Barbara Taub, Audrey Traeger, Stephen Tulkin, Marion Virton, Adele Weinstein, Magda Weiss, Burton Wallner, Gina Yarmus, Ernest Zeilberger. I apologize to those families who recognize that I mispronounced the name. If you have others who are being remembered at this time, please speak their names aloud or speak them in your hearts. We mention as well those who died in defense of the United States, those who died in defense of the state of Israel, those who died through senseless acts of terror and horror, those who are the innocent victims of wars they did not start, those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, we remember them all. Yitkadal
V'yikadash Rabba,
Rabbah
V'yalma Divra Kirte, V'yamlich Malkute, V'chayim Yomech,
V'chayim
V'chayim Ariv, V'im Amen.
Shmei Rabba Mavarach Le'olam Me'almayim Yisparach,
Yishma.
Yishma, Yitamam, Yitam, Yitadar, Yitalal, Shemeda,
Rifu.
Laelam,
Elam Minka Birchata L'Shem,
Bashirata,
Tishbachata
V'Nekamata,
Iran Bialma,
Lamet, Yehishlam
Yishma Rabba Shemayim,
Maya, the
Chaim Aleinu, Yaakov Yisrael,
Israel,
Vimru Amen.
Ose Shalom B'Rama,
Imrama,
Uya Ase Shalom,
Uya
Aleinu,
Shalom,
Ko Yisrael,
Al Israel, Imru, Amen. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel. Bring home the hostages alive and well, and let us say,
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you. This was amazing, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Love to all. Shabbat shalom.
That's